Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm Joe, by the way.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for
Yeah,
hopping on for
yeah,
a
no
chat.
problem.
I
Thank
love
you
your
for reaching
background.
out.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
So many DVDs. I love it. Nice shirt as well. Well, I guess I just wanted to kind of, chat with you about, kind of how you got started and kind of what you're about and your interests. And because I'm a big horror fan myself, and I just would love to kind of get your insight and your experience. And yeah, I just love your site. So I've been following it for years, and I just would love to kind of acknowledge that. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I
of course.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. And I guess let's just get started. I mean, so, broke horror fan, kind of where did that all start for you?
Basically, I had kind of in my teenage years started, becoming super interested in horror movies, as well as writing. So I was writing for a bunch of, smaller sites and like message boards in those days. Kind of worked my way up, wrote for some of the bigger sites as well, and eventually reached a point where it was just like, I don't know, tired of kind of like the news cycle and like putting a lot of work in for little to often no pay. Not that I was in it for
Right.
the money, but it was a huge commitment of time. So I figured if I'm going to do it without any compensation, I want to kind of do it on my own terms.
Mm.
So I started Broke Horror Fan. I wanted to find like a niche that wasn't being served as well because there are so many like great sites out there that cover the standard, your news, interviews, reviews,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. Um, now I dabble in those things, not so much news, but I do reviews and interviews from time to time. But it's really just what I want to do, what I want to see, who I want to talk to. It's not the press cycle of trying to cover every single movie that comes out.
Right.
So because I am such a big collector, of everything, not just movies, not just physical media, but the toys, the records, the posters, shirts, everything. If it's got a horror movie on it, I probably own it.
That's awesome.
Um, eh, not
I
so
think
great on my bank account, and that's where the name Broke Horror Fan came from.
I was gonna ask about that actually.
Yeah, so I was kind of trying to find like I want a name that kind of does what it says on the package, kind of thing. So yeah, I eventually landed on. I went through a couple drafts before I landed on Broke Horror Fan.
Mm.
It's still kind of, I don't want to say embarrassing, but like it's weird to say, particularly at like press screenings, and like it's like
Right.
people with like, I'm in the Boston area, so like people with like the Boston Globe or like big newspapers, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Broke Horror Fan. But it's
Amazing.
fine. You'll sometimes get a laugh from the people, be like, oh yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of the where I started, the mentality behind it, why I did it. Originally, just showcasing, all the cool stuff that's out there. Because the sites that are so tied up in the news cycle, they're covering like the big DVD releases and stuff, and like occasional like very exciting merch drops, I guess you could say. But a lot of the other stuff goes under the radar. So I kind of wanted to focus on that, shine a spotlight on the cool artists doing stuff out there. I predominantly focus on officially licensed stuff, but I definitely posted a lot of stuff that, in the gray area of like, fan made posters or toys or whatever.
Totally. And I think that's one of the reasons kind of why I started, kind of reading it in the first place was like it was unique from other sites. So I think that's definitely stood out to me as that. And I love that you kind of incorporate all of that, toys and records. I think that's so cool because like, I go to sites, like Bloody Disgusting and all that. And it's like, I want to find, I love this, I'm looking at Halloween movies or, whatever kind of horror movie I'm into. And I'm like, I want to find the vinyl or I want to find so cool collectibles. But I know like every time I go to your site, it's like, oh, there they are, there's a link and I'll go check them out. So I think that's super cool. Now, what about like, I mean, that's how you got started. Do you remember your first like collectible or vinyl or any kind of thing that really started your
Um,
passion for that?
my first toy, like, toy,
Yeah.
I was, 15 or whatever, but it was a Captain Spaulding
Amazing.
toy when House of a Thousand Corpses came out. I think it was before Devil's Rejects existed.
Okay.
Um, it was like at, I think Suncoast Video, I'm pretty sure I bought it from, which is like,
Nice. Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore, but was a cool, shop at a mall where you could buy movies and some
Okay.
collectibles. That was my first big one. And then it's downhill from there.
Amazing. No, that's cool. Now I think I can't remember if I saw this. Now you go to conventions, right? I
Yeah.
assume. Okay, cool. Now,
Yeah.
is that like a more recent thing, or have you kind of always done that since you've kind of been in the writing community?
Yeah, I've done it for, again, like I kind of lucked out. I got into horror, like I said, when I was like 15 or so. And that was like just as things were kind of starting to take off. It's obviously, I mean, I could never fathom how big it's gotten in the 15 plus years since then.
Mhm.
But it was just starting. There was it was proliferation of direct to video stuff, and horror was hot at that time. But also there was a local convention called Rock and Shock here in
Okay.
Massachusetts, which was really cool. I started attending maybe like their third year, and they ended up going. They actually just their last year was 2019, not because of COVID. They had planned that, and that was like their 19th year or something. So I'd attended that for a good 15 or so years, and absolutely fell in love with that. It's like, these are my people, because at the time I was in high school, I was like, I had friends, but they were like, didn't want to watch all my shitty movies. So
Right.
it was kind of like, these are my people. I feel at home, and kind of never looked back. And I've since expanded out to other conventions in the area, but that Rock and Shock will always have a very special place in my heart, because it was also, I mean, I did everything there. I was, started as an attendee, then I covered it as press.
Okay.
I had run panels there for a few years.
Oh, cool.
I was a vendor with Broke Horror Fans tapes their final year. So it's pretty cool to kind of run the gamut of everything. Except
Yeah.
celebrity guests, but maybe someday.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like starting out as a fan to like end up being a vendor, I feel like that's super cool.
And it was like, I knew people, because people who I
Right.
sometimes only saw once a year at Rock and Shock, but like it was
Cool.
just became like a little family, like a family reunion every year. It
That's
was
so
awesome.
cool. That's something I want to get more into, is kind of the convention scene. Like, so I went to the Halloween 40 convention in Pasadena when the new
Oh
one came
yeah.
out. Oh, it was awesome. And I don't, were you there?
No, no.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that
I'm
was my
jealous though.
first. Yeah, it was amazing. And it was my first ever convention. And I just was never into it. And then, I immediately fell in love with it. It was kind of like you were saying, I went by myself because no one wanted to go with me. And I was like, here's a group of people who are genuinely excited for Halloween. Like it's such a cool environment. Like you don't realize that exists. Well, you see it over social media and things like that, but being in person is such a different experience. And like I think that goes along with like, I saw the movie, we screened the movie. It was like 2 weeks or something before it came out or something. And, you're in the theater with some of the crew and whatever. And that to me is the best movie theater experience I've had, just because they get the little hints that were in, the original film. And,
Yeah.
you see that with a different crowd and they don't get it. It's like, there's something special about that. And I just love the horror community for that reason. It's awesome. I love it. And everyone's super nice and friendly, and we all get nerd out together about kills and the weirdest things.
Well, that's the thing. Like you could go alone and like feel comfortable and like
Yeah.
just turn to the person next to you and strike up a conversation, because everyone's there for the same reason, because they love the shit
100%.
as much as can I curse? Is that
Yeah, yeah, because we're,
all
yeah,
right?
no worries.
Sorry.
We're pretty chill.
I try not to too much, but
I know,
sometimes
yeah. I'm
yeah.
trying to hold back too, but it happens.
But yeah, no, it's so awesome. The sense of community, like you said, you can see it online. Like it's obviously big. Like Twitter has a big horror film
Yes.
community, which I love. But it's also like, the internet is different from real life, as much as some people try to hide that fact.
100%.
So like when you can actually experience it, person to person, it's a warm and fuzzy feeling.
It really is, honestly. Now I see you got your Exorcist shirt on. What, or Exorcist 3, I should say.
Exorcist 3, that's right.
Diversity.
The
So
best
what?
Exorcist, I would say.
Okay, cool. Okay, that goes kind of goes along with my question. So, like, I mean, obviously you're a big horror fan. So, what? I mean, this is probably an impossible question, but like, what are some of your favorites, or like, I guess, what kind of started off for you, or what do you just go back to over and over again, and what are you super into?
All right, because I will just talk for hours. I'm going to answer all three of those questions. Um, what started it for me? It was actually Freddy versus Jason coming out.
Amazing.
It was like I knew Freddie, Michael, and Jason like just through pop culture. I particularly remember H2O coming out was like a big deal when that
Okay.
came out, but had never seen any of them. And then when Freddy versus Jason was coming out, it was like a huge event, even for like just I'm trying to think, that was 2003, so I was 14.
Mhm.
And like it was just kind of permeated everything. I was like into movies, but I mean nothing like I am now. It was just
Okay.
something like I heard about. I thought that was cool. So I wanted to rent all the movies prior to it coming out so I could see it and like experience it as everyone else was.
Mhm.
But didn't have the time. And so I thought I would be okay if I just got away with renting the first Elm Street and the first Friday the 13th. which like in theory I was like, no, like I can piece together, like, you know, it's
Yeah.
little did I know Jason is not in the first Friday the 13th. So I was like pretty confused, but still, you know, enjoyed both of them a lot. And then loved Freddy versus Jason. That's like
Mhm.
definitely like, I know it's certainly not the best in either franchise, but like I kind of hold it very
It's
near and
so
dear to my
fun though.
heart because,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing, like it's hard, like it's impossible for me to look at it without like the kind of rose tinted nostalgia glasses, but just like objectively, like particularly for a 14-year-old or whatever, like it's everything I wanted in a movie. Like I was a big like
100%.
wrestling fan. I was big into like the bands on the soundtrack, you
Sure,
know,
okay.
like it was just like, I don't know. I loved it.
Mm.
So then after the movie came out, I mean, after I saw the movie, I went back and watched all the other Elm Streets and Fridays, and then immediately went to Halloween because that's obviously the next logical choice. And to answer your next question, John Carpenter's Halloween is my favorite movie.
Awesome.
Just something about it just kind of checks all the boxes in terms of, you know, what I want in a horror movie, particularly at that time, as like a budding fan. And then continued to branch out from there, kind of hit all the basics first. This was when Netflix was still renting DVDs, was only renting DVDs at that
Right.
point. So I was getting, you know, all the Romero films and like, you know, all the 80s slasher classics and that kind of stuff, and then kind of branching out more and more from there.
Okay.
Some of my other favorites, Jaws is, I would say, like Halloween is my favorite movie, but I think Jaws is probably like the perfect movie.
Okay.
Just entertainment value, excitement, you know, whatever on any, however, whatever metric you measure movies by, like I could make the argument that Jaws is like the best.
Awesome.
I love the original Elm Street is still one of my favorites. I also love Scream.
Mhm.
I love Psycho. I
Yep.
love The Monster Squad, Suspiria. I'm trying not to ramble too much, but like,
Yeah, you're
yeah, those,
fine.
those are the movies that like you said, like I kind of keep going back to time and time
Okay.
again. Um, The Shining is another one.
Mhm.
Phantasms recently, like every time I watch Phantasm, I like it a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, so and I'm happy to say that like the excitement that like, you know, teenage Alex had to like discover another horror movie that I hadn't seen, like I still have that. It's
Mhm.
obviously like fewer and further between that, like I see the good ones, but like
Right.
between old stuff that's just now coming out on Blu-ray that, you know, maybe never even got a DVD release, and then new stuff, you know, particularly like independent films. There's still like so much cool stuff to discover. It's just never ending now more than ever. It's just like this
Right.
bounty of too much content to indulge
Right.
in, but like, damn it, I'm gonna try.
I feel yeah. Now, what about like what's do you have a favorite subgenre then? Like slasher, or do you kind of just dabble in everything?
I mean, slasher was definitely like the thing that got
Okay.
me into horror, but I will say like other than like, you know, the big ones, I kind of get bored with a lot of the like, you know, the B level stuff, I guess you could say. I
Sure.
still enjoy it. I'll watch, you know, any slasher, particularly, I mean, obviously like 80s and even the 90s, I kind of have a fondness for.
Mhm.
Um, but like if a new slasher comes out and doesn't really do anything that I haven't seen a million times, it's easy for me to get bored with it.
Totally.
I find myself, I don't know if I call it a favorite, but I think I draw my I'm most drawn towards the supernatural stuff.
Okay.
Which is weird because I don't even know if I believe in ghosts or like an afterlife or anything like that. But the movie is definitely just like the, I don't know, the suggestion of it.
Sure.
You know, if I believe the world they build in the movie, it definitely, it can get under my skin
Right.
in a way that, you know, that's the dragon that I chased for, you know, why I'm still watching these movies.
100%. Now, how do you feel about the Conjuring films?
Big fan. I think they're
Okay.
great. I think didn't love the new one
Mhm.
as much as some of the other ones, but I think the first two, the main Conjuring movies are really good. I
Mhm.
also think the two more recent Annabelle films are a lot of fun.
Yep.
The other spin-offs not as good, but still like, you know, a fine popcorn, you know, entertainment movie. Like they definitely like have like a well-oiled machine there going.
Mhm.
I'll watch anything with James Wan's name on it.
Yep.
I think he's, I mean, like I feel like the way, you know, people my age and older like worshipped at the altar of John Carpenter and you know, Wes Craven and people like that, Sam Raimi. I think there's this younger generation who's looking at James Wan like that because he's created
100%.
so much. It's insane. Like the same
Yeah.
guy made Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring, like three
Unbelievable.
wildly successful and genuinely great horror movies. Like it's insane. It's mind
It's
blowing.
crazy. His like what gets me every time is like he nailed like his cinematography, he just nails it every single time. He knows how to capture paranormal like no other. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
absolutely.
Like the
Absolutely.
suspense. Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. Now you said you think The Exorcist 3, that's your favorite Exorcist film?
It is. I love the original too. I think it's
Mhm.
amazing for what it is, but I mean, I feel like it loses a lot of its power if you're not a religious person, and I'm not.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also think what made it work so well in the 70s is like how shocking it was, which a lot of it came down to language, which like these days it's like, I grew up watching South Park, so like the things she's saying isn't that shocking anymore.
Right. Right.
Um, don't get me wrong, like the story is still very engaging, the
Mhm.
performances are amazing, extremely well shot. It's a great movie, but if I'm gonna watch an Exorcist movie, I would choose to put on the third one,
Okay. Cool.
and then I would kind of avoid all the other ones except the first, really.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. I feel the same exact way. I mean, I prefer the first one, but I totally get what you're saying with the third one. And that I still show people that one scene every, that they
The
the
nurse,
quick
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I show that everyone's like, oh, is there like a moment that genuinely scared you? And I was like, yes, I will show you this.
Oh, so good.
It's so good.
Uh,
Now,
I
oh, sorry, continue.
well, I just made a short film that
Oh, you did?
I showed the actress like that shot. So like, here's what we're going for, because she's like kind of lunging out at a
Okay.
character, and I was like, here's exactly what I want.
Awesome. Now, okay, I guess that's my next question. Like, so do you have video production experience then?
Yeah, when I'm trying to think, I was like 18 or so. I was
Mhm.
writing for this site called Horror 101, which doesn't
Okay.
exist anymore. But like I kind of helped start it up. Again, I was just like an eager kid, just wanted to get my writing out there and like have an audience. This was the days of MySpace, to date myself. And I noticed that there was a local film being produced, an independent film being produced locally in the Boston area, on MySpace, and it had a bunch of these days, like it's very, very common for like an independent movie to cast every like out of work actor who's at every convention.
Right, right.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. I think those
No,
people
no, no.
deserve these opportunities, but I'm just saying at this time in like, I don't know, 2008 or so, uh, this was not as common. So this
Mhm.
movie had it had Tony Moran, who's the unmasked Michael Myers in
Yep.
Halloween,
Mhm.
PJ Souls from Halloween,
No way.
Tony Todd, Candyman,
Wow. What was it
Christina
called?
Cleve. It's called Beg,
Big. I feel like I've heard
Beg.
of that. I haven't seen it, but
It didn't come out till like
okay.
6 years after this point.
Okay.
But anyway, so I saw it was filming. This is a very long answer. I apologize.
No,
Uh,
this is what we're here for.
saw it was filming locally, messaged them, and I was like, "Hey, I run this horror site. Can I come like do a piece on the movie, like a little set visit? I'll take some pictures, talk to some cast and crew, and like write something up." And they were like, "Yeah, sure, we'd love to come.
Sweet.
Love to have you out." It was like this director, Kevin McDonald, very nice guy. It
Mhm.
was his first movie. He had like kind of put his whole life savings into this thing that he really believed in. Um, and I remember going to that set, and prior to this, there was there's like a, I don't know what we call it, an adage, I guess, that's like, every film critic is a failed filmmaker. And at the time I thought I wanted to be like a critic or journalist or something.
Mhm.
And like I was like, no, like I have no interest in making the movies. I want to write about them. Like writing is something I'm passionate about. And I remember like we were talking about going to a convention. It was
Mhm.
like I remember getting on that set and just like seeing like, this is a low budget movie,
Mhm.
but it had like, moderate production value,
Oh
and
yeah.
like had the cast. So like just seeing everything, like all the pieces coming together, and like, hanging out with like the cast and crew and realizing like what a community, like it really is like a family on a set. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like this is what I want to do. Like this is like a dream.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of never got that out of my head. I still think about that all the time.
Mhm.
It's what I want to do with my life in general. If I can make a career out of it, that's amazing. But if not, I'm going to keep kicking around like little shorts on weekends with friends whenever I can.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I worked on a bunch of local independent sets, just kind of found people, friends of friends or whatever, or Craigslist at the time was like,
Mhm.
it was before Facebook was as huge as it is now, to find local filmmakers. Uh, and started working on sets, kind of worked my way up, behind the scenes stuff. Kind of worked in most departments, never particularly good at any of them, but like, I have a little bit of experience in each department,
Mhm.
enough where I eventually felt comfortable to make my own stuff, kind of cherry picking crew members who I befriended on other
Right.
sets to kind of,
Mhm.
it's like, I'll help you out on your movies if you help me out on my movies, because it's all, I mean, basically everyone on a no budget film set who's like volunteering their time, they're all there for the passion, and most of them want to be filmmakers themselves. So it's very easy to find people who are, network and be like, you're a good person with a good head on your shoulders, hard worker, and we both want to make our own things. Let's help each other.
Right.
So yeah, I eventually made this short. My first one was called The Horrors of Autocorrect, which was cool. Like, a horror comedy. It's kind of a send up to the opening of Scream, the opening scene of Scream, but the killer is texting and he keeps getting auto-corrected.
Cool.
It's like way better. I mean, I'm a pretty humble person, but I can confidently say like I've never written a script that tight since then, and I've tried. But like it's like, yeah, better than I ever thought it was going to turn out, particularly for like my first thing. There's definitely like things as a director I wish I did differently, but I'm very proud of where it landed. It ended up getting picked up by Crypt TV, which is now is like a pretty bigger thing. This was like in the earlier days. It's like an online, I don't know how you describe it. Basically they make and distribute short films.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Eli Roth is like a co-founder,
cool,
co-partner.
Sweet.
So it's super. I mean, now I have mixed feelings about Eli Roth, but at the time, like that was huge. Like this real filmmaker who happens to also be from Massachusetts, like saw my short, liked it, and wants to like have his company involved with it. So that was like an amazing experience for a first short. I made a bunch others since then, like I don't know, 6 or 8, maybe 1 or 2 a year.
That's awesome.
Since then, yeah. My most recent one, if anyone has 7 minutes to spare, it's called The Nurturing, which you can find if you look like The Nurturing short horror film on YouTube. You'll find it. It's about like a kid. He's back in his childhood bedroom with a broken leg, and the monster under his bed that he like believed in childhood is back, basically. Yeah,
I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. That was like my first like handful of shorts were all very comedic leaning, because that's easier to do on a low budget. I mean, harder to get things that's actually funny, but easier to pull off without a budget. But my last couple of shorts and moving forward, I'm kind of focusing on more on like straight on horror, which is more where my tastes lay anyway. I enjoy horror comedy, but it's really hard to get it right.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I'm not the biggest horror comedy, but if it's done well, like Scream is one of my favorite movies, and I mean, obviously there's comedic elements. That's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, I'm just curious about that because I'm an editor myself. I don't work in features or shorts, but that's something I would love to do. I went to film school in Savannah, Georgia, and I ended up doing advertising and commercials and branding work, which has been great. But something I really want to do is start making my own shorts and writing horror shorts, especially. And that's something I've been trying to do, especially over COVID. That's like I'm just not the best writer. So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to sit down for an hour and, a day and try to just pump something out. And every time I get something good, I'm like, okay, now what, how do I end it? And I just move on to the next one. And so I just need to complete the first script and I'll be fine.
Well, let's talk.
Yeah, honestly, I would just love to, and I'm actually from New York. So that's cool. I'm from Boston, upstate though, not the city. I'm probably better off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just love it. I love the whole like film atmosphere, being on set and being passionate about it. And especially in the horror game, it's so fun. And, I was lucky enough to make, a few shorts in college, obviously for my senior thesis and all that. It's really fun, but I want to do it more professionally for sure. So
yeah, man, let's talk. It's funny. I grew up, like, I shouldn't say grew up, but like in my teenage years before the film stuff, I used to film bands, actually more photos than film, but nice. Kind of transitioned into film. And through that, I learned like very moderate kind of how to edit. And then when I shot my first short, I was like, I'm just going to teach myself how to edit. So I basically, because I don't have the money to pay anyone, and like editing's not like a fun job, it's not like a fun on-set job, so it's like you got to pay somebody. So I taught myself, and now I cut all my stuff, and I also make a living as an editor as well, but mostly like corporate stuff, not
that's cool,
not film, but occasionally I get like a short or something, which is cool.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. And so you're an editor as well, like full time?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I feel like I rarely meet full-time editors.
It's rare. Cool. Yeah, it is rare.
And especially horror fans. This is crazy. But yeah, that's cool. And then, so I guess I saw recently you were on some locations, some like on sets. So where did you visit? I mean, where was that at?
My most recent one, so I went on vacation. My girlfriend and I went to Emerald Isle, North Carolina, which is like
Mm.
Outer Banks ish, but like
Yep.
just off the Outer Banks, so it's like not quite as touristy, I guess.
Hmm.
She has family down there, so the first thing I do, literally anywhere I'm going, that's like more than an hour away from my house, I'll Google like, what was filmed near here.
Nice.
And there wasn't anything in that area. There's a lot in North Carolina, but it's like the Wilmington area, which was like, a
Yeah.
couple hours away. So I was like, oh, well, whatever. Like, I'll enjoy my vacation without forcing my
I
girlfriend
guess
to
so.
take glamour shots of me in front of random strangers' houses. But as luck would have it, just in like some random Facebook group I'm in, some people were talking about, it was like a horror group. People were talking about like, what movies were filmed in your hometown or whatever. And, just reading through, I happened to see someone's like, oh, I'm in North Carolina and the Mutilator was shot right by me. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, well, that didn't come up. Mutilator, believe it or not, is not high on many people's radar. So like that
right.
didn't come up on a lot of Google lists of like movies filmed in North Carolina.
Hmm.
So I was like, well, let me just see where that's filmed. And it happened to be like 20 minutes from where we were staying. So I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing. I'm going there.
That's so cool.
So yeah, we hit up. There's like the house in the movie, and then
So cool.
there's like a library nearby that was used as the dorm in the movie.
Amazing.
So it was that was like a fun, because I was not expecting it. It was kind of a
Mhm.
last minute thing. I was like, hey, this will be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've done a few. I did do the Exorcist stairs. Cat.
Yep. He's
Exorcist stairs, which
okay.
are cool.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, the reason I was in DC, I was on my way back from Maryland last year or 2 years ago. Time was a blur with COVID, but
Yeah.
it was 2019 because it was for the 20th anniversary of Blair Witch Project.
Oh, nice.
I went down to Maryland. They do it annually, but it
Okay.
was kind of like a bigger deal for the 20th anniversary,
Right.
called the Blair Witch Experience.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, if anyone's ever in Maryland, the guy Matt runs this thing. He's a good dude, really knows his
Okay.
stuff. Also wrote a book about the making of the Blair Witch if you can't make it down there.
Sweet.
But it's basically like Friday night they did a screening of the movie in like this, historic theater down there, and one of the directors, Eduardo Sanchez, and one of the actors were there.
Awesome.
Did like a Q&A after. Some of the other crew too did a Q&A after, and then the next day you could go on like this tour. There's like a bus they rented,
Mhm.
and toured through all the locations, and then you got to camp out in the woods. It was actually like not exactly where they filmed them,
Yeah,
but near where they filmed.
Oh, amazing.
But then you got to go to the actual place. It was awesome. It was a really cool experience. That was definitely like one of the top in terms of like visiting filming locations, because like, I mean, again, it was one of those things like a convention. There was like a mini convention because everyone was there because they loved it.
Right.
Everyone wanted their cool picture, in all the
Of
iconic
course.
spots.
Oh, I'll have to hit that up. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's worth it. I don't know what they're doing in terms of COVID, but it's
Mhm.
usually in, I want to say like September.
Okay, cool.
September, early October. I think it was early October.
Good to know.
Blair Witch Experience on
Cool.
Facebook. And then definitely my favorite one, and probably my first maybe, other than like local stuff in Boston, was the Pasadena, the Halloween locations, plus the Nightmare on Elm Street house. I went to, as a matter of fact, Warner Brothers flew me out to
No
do
way.
a thing for the second Annabelle movie. It's weird because like I'm just like a dude who loves movies, but
Yeah.
because I've built a following, sometimes they consider me an influencer.
Sweet. That's great.
Which is cool. Like I get cool promo stuff, but like
Mhm.
this was like definitely the biggest thing that's ever happened to me. They flew me out to LA to interview some of the cast and crew, and then like go to a screening.
Wow.
And
For
while
Annabelle
I was
Creation?
for Annabelle Creation, yes.
Sweet.
So
Oh,
I got to talk to
amazing.
David F. Sandberg. It was
Oh,
like
so cool.
he was
Was he just the
amazing.
coolest person ever?
He really is, and like he's definitely like one of the people who like inspire me to keep making my own shorts. Just
He's
for, like
amazing,
the stuff he
man.
does. Even like it's insane. Like he makes whatever $100 million superhero movie, and then like comes back and makes another like low budget short with his wife. Like that's exactly like that's the dream, man. That's living the dream.
And his BTS videos are so good.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like
Oh.
I feel like I wish I learned so much from like DVD special features and like
Mhm.
audio commentaries, which like are fewer and further between these days.
Mhm.
But like I feel like again, like the next generation of filmmaker, they're gonna be watching that stuff and be like, oh, I can do this. I can shoot this on my phone and like still make it look pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing experience to begin with. But my whole point was when I was out there, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever get back to LA, certainly not on somebody else's dime. So
Right.
like if there's only one thing I can do in my whole time there, I want to see the Halloween filming locations. So I stayed with a friend out there for a couple extra days, and visited all the Halloween stuff. It was like, and that, I don't know. I mean, again, my favorite movie, and like I love visiting locations to begin with, but this was definitely just like oh man, this is like an incredible experience to like kind of feel like I'm living in that world. A lot of the houses haven't changed too much considering it's been 40 years now, over 40 years.
Yep.
So that was definitely like that one, and the Blair Witch one are huge.
That's amazing. Yeah, we when I was at the convention, we did the bus tour as well around the locations, and it was just being at the Myers house was it's such a feeling that you can't explain to people who don't like appreciate it as much.
Yeah,
it's like you're just standing there and I'm like, I just want to hear like the crickets. I want to see the jack-o'-lantern. Oh, it is amazing.
It really is. And I love the people who, I mean, for anyone who hasn't been, the people who own Laurie Strode's house, they like leave out pumpkins to recreate like her on the sitting out with the pumpkin. Like I was like, oh, that like really, that's so sweet, because like they obviously don't have to do that.
No. When we were there, the woman came out actually.
Oh, really?
And she like had a big bowl of candy, and she was giving it to us, and like she had like these newspaper clippings from when they were filming. It was so cool.
Oh, that is really cool.
She's like, oh, I love Halloween. Like, you guys are so fun. I love when people come to my house. I'm like, that's awesome. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm an awkward dude, so I feel weird like standing in someone's front yard for a picture. Granted, I'll do it, but I feel weird. So it's always nice to kind of know that the people there like appreciate it.
Yep.
I will say that I went to Philadelphia recently.
Okay. Oh, the Rocky Steps.
Yeah,
I saw that.
That was one. Yeah. So I went to, it was like a little outside of Philadelphia, the Mahoning Drive-In. They did a VHS fest. Where they like, showed tapes and sold tapes. We had a booth there, which is really cool. And again, because I'm insane, while we were out there, I was like, let's see what was filmed around there. So we ended up my girlfriend and I spent a day in Philadelphia, which is cool. Saw the Rocky Steps, also hit some M. Night Shyamalan filming locations.
Sixth Sense.
We went to the Sixth Sense house, the Unbreakable comic book shop, and we saw the house from The Visit, but they have no trespassing signs everywhere, so it's like a very very far away shot. But at the Sixth Sense house, I like wanted to pose on their doorstep. Basically, it's like it's an apartment, so it's not like I was in a yard per se, but it's just like a front door and then a step. So I wanted to get in front of it, but there was somebody like looking out the window and definitely like knew what I was doing. So I felt awkward. So we like took a walk around the block, came back. I was like, all right, thankfully my girlfriend's a very good sport.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm just going to walk up there real quick. You take a picture, whatever it looks like, that'll be good. So as we're taking it, the guy yells out the window, was like, are you taking a picture? I was like, yeah, do you mind? He's like, no, I think it's cool. So I was like,
awesome.
Okay, that's cool. Good. I was so afraid he was going to like yell at me. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and another, I'm sorry. I can.
No, go for it.
But another cool thing, I now live in Scituate, Massachusetts, which is home to the exterior that was used for the House by the Cemetery, which movie.
Oh, no way.
Which is really cool. It's my girlfriend's from the town, and again, like when we were getting to know each other, and she told me she was from Scituate. I was like, I've heard that name before, but I don't remember why. And I Googled it, and it was because it was for House by the Cemetery. So like we had visited it before we moved in, but now that like it's now like an art community kind of building, but it's also part of like a public kind of walking trail basically through the woods up there. So you can just kind of like take a little jaunt through the woods and end up at the House by the Cemetery, which is amazing. Awesome.
I feel like also a lesser known film, really. Not many people know.
Well, that's the other cool thing. I you don't see people pose in front of that house very often for the geeks who do, track down locations like us. So I had posted it on Instagram and got a bunch of comments like, yeah, where is that? Like I thought, I just assumed it was in Italy because they did film, like I think all the interiors are in Italy, but some of the exteriors were in this area. So that's like my one thing. Whenever I have any horror friends in the area, I'm like, all right, I gotta take you to the house.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I kind of feel on like the awkwardness though. Like, I was recently in Chicago and I went to like the Home Alone house. I did all the Home Alone and everything. And of course that house, they get visitors probably daily.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I was like outside and there was like this work van it was like working across the street, so not really on the yard, but I still felt weird. So I just took a lap, and they were gone when I came back. But I'd feel you there. It's weird sometimes, but most of the people I've come in contact with have been super cool and willing to do it. I mean, let's see, where did I go? I've been to a few different spots that have been chill. Like the Texas Chainsaw places have been cool. I did go to Wilmington actually recently, and I hit all of like the Conjuring, and the Conjuring house was awesome. But I mean, that was also a really cool spot because it was like, or I went right in the morning, like kind of when the sun was rising, and it was really foggy, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it was just like
had that atmosphere.
Quiet. It was amazing. I know, like, have you heard of On-Set Cinema in Myers House?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I went. He had screenings there, and I really want to hit that up at some point. I'm actually going to go to the Shining one in October, which I'm really excited about. So I actually lived in Portland for 3 years, so we've done a lot of locations out there. But I'm excited to go back because I haven't been since I moved. But yeah,
yeah. No, he does a lot of cool stuff. I haven't been to one yet, but
yeah,
definitely stuff I want to hit up.
Yeah, I just did the Dark Knight one in Chicago, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. So
that reminded me, you're talking about like houses that get people all the time. I forgot, but the first location I did ever visit was the Hocus Pocus house in Salem.
Sick.
Because it's definitely another one. I remember like getting there, and there were like people just leaving from taking pictures, and then like we took ours, and as we were leaving, other people were coming to take pictures. I think it was October too, so
okay,
makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But I think that was like the first film location I saw in real
cool
life.
I gotta get there. I was bummed because we went to Salem in October a couple of years ago, but it was pouring rain the entire time, so I was like,
really?
I could go, but I want to get like that. I don't want to like go in the pouring rain. I gotta go when
well,
I'm gonna go back soon, but
as a I'm not Salem local per se, but as a Massachusetts person, don't go in October if you want to like see or do anything really, because it's just packed for people. If you can hit like mid-September, you'll get like people like start to have the Halloween stuff out. I mean, the Halloween stuff's out all year pretty much there, but like they'll have like the atmosphere, the autumnal vibe, but like it won't quite be inundated with people yet.
Right.
But yeah, it's like a nightmare to get around anywhere there. I mean, it's like a fun, I shouldn't say nightmare, but just like if you don't want to be around a million people and wait around in lines for everything.
I feel that. It was fun when we were there for sure. But yeah, it was a lot of people, but
yeah,
who knows? But yeah, that was great. It was cool. One year for my birthday when we were in Portland, Oregon. I convinced like 4 or 5 of my friends to we flew out to Sacramento, and we got an Airbnb out there, and we went to Sonoma County and Bodega Bay for the Birds and Scream locations, which is
that's
super cool.
Yeah, I really want to do the Scream ones sometime.
Oh, they're so cool. It was crazy. I was it's a community center, which is essentially the high school, and we were inside taking photos, and all these people were like, oh, like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, Scream was shot here. No one had any idea.
Really?
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Like, I mean, I'm not surprised people weren't like fawning over it, but I'm surprised like people around the in the area or that work there or whatever, frequent there, weren't aware. It's funny sometimes you get like these reminders of like, oh yeah, we kind of live in a bubble, like
really though,
not everyone's as nerdy as us.
I love it though, it's great.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think, do you have any like bucket list locations or anywhere you really want to get to that you haven't been yet?
I do think The Shining would be one of them. That's probably number one. So
for sure.
I mean, I'm in Massachusetts and they film Jaws in off the coast, but I get terrible motion sickness, so like I don't really want to go on a boat. But like I think one of these days I'm just going to take some Dramamine or whatever will knock me out for the boat ride. I think it's only like a half hour on a boat, but like that would kill me.
So they do like is that like a tour boat ride, or is it just like a boat ride?
No, it's because it's like an island, like you can't get there by, so you physically need to take a ferry.
Gotcha. I didn't know that. Wow, cool.
Yeah. But so I am gonna do that one at some point, but just not sure when exactly.
That's tough with the motion sickness.
Yeah, it's not great.
I can imagine. I really want to get to Camp Crystal Lake. I think that's like one of my top.
Now they do those tours, which is really cool.
Yeah, I know. And it's like I keep getting text messages like, hey, like tickets are available. I'm like, I can't go, of course, that one weekend,
Yeah.
So hopefully soon, but it's a whole trek I gotta make. So, and you got any like events or anything coming up that you're covering, or that you can talk about if you I don't know what the privacy is with that, but
no, I mean, nothing major coming up. I mean, it's not to bring the house down, but like obviously like stuff is finally almost sort of going towards normal again, and now
Yeah.
we have like the Delta variant, so like stuff's getting canceled or postponed again. So like
Mhm.
it's hard to say in terms of like wide events. There's I haven't made a return to conventions yet, which I would love to do, but like I mean I don't know. I feel like conventions were germ factories before all of this. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but I'm glad to see like some are, not to get on a soapbox, but I'm glad to see some are, doing mandatory masks and stuff like that. I think
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
that's a
100%.
smart approach with that many people in that confined a space.
Mhm.
But yeah, nothing major. I do help promote, local advanced screenings. I work with some
Oh, nice.
of the studios to like sponsor. I just saw the new Candyman last night. I'm not sure when this will air, but it doesn't come out till Friday. I saw it on
Mhm.
whatever it was yesterday, Tuesday. Yeah.
Amazing. How was
Um,
it?
I liked it a
Without,
lot. I
oh,
liked it a
can't
lot.
wait. I'm so excited.
Um, which is really exciting because like it's kind of the only way I'll go to a movie these days, because they do it in like giant theaters, and
Right.
they keep social distance, which is nice. So that's been cool. Hoping those continue. Really want to see Halloween Kills.
Cannot
Super
wait.
excited for that.
Oh my gosh.
But nothing major. Like I said, I just shot that short that will
Yeah.
hopefully be online at sometime in the near future.
Cool.
If you if you look up Lockbridge Productions on
Lockbridge. Okay.
YouTube, that's like where you can watch like most of my shorts.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
If you have any interest in checking those out.
Yeah. I'll connect that as well in the post. I'll put
Oh,
that in
cool.
there.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Sure.
that.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's great.
Other than that, keep on keeping on.
Keep watching horror.
Yeah. I mentioned in passing, but Broke Horror Fan does release VHS tapes.
Oh, no way.
We do modern horror films on officially licensed, like fully functioning VHS. We've done some really cool titles. We did Mandy, Terrifier, Willy's Wonderland, Victor
Sick.
Crowley, Host, a bunch. Those are like some of our bigger selling titles, but like
Sick.
we're continuing to build that. I say we, it's me and a good friend of mine, James, who runs Witter Entertainment. He's
Okay.
the other half of the VHS venture.
Nice.
A lot of people, don't understand the nostalgia for VHS, and like obviously, it's not how I would want to watch a movie for the first time, but I do think it's like kind of an interesting experiment to see like how these movies play in kind of grainy 4:3 standard definition.
Sure.
I think sometimes it I don't want to necessarily helps, because like it's almost an insult to the filmmaker, but like there's certain movie like a slasher in particular, it just, I don't know, something about it with the green and the fuzz and the
Yep.
you kind of can't see the seams on the makeup anymore. I don't know, it's fun. So if that's of interest to you, there's a link on Broke Horror Fan, or you can go directly to witterentertainment.com.
Cool. That's awesome. So how does that work? Doing that. I mean, it's probably a long process, but
it is. Here's another long ass story for you, since you asked.
Let's go.
So Broke Horror Fan had sponsored Adam Green. Adam Green has a podcast called The Movie Crypt, which is, especially if you're interested in filmmaking, I highly recommend. That was actually Adam Green, both the podcast as well as his show Holliston were like very important to me in terms of making the step to actually making my own stuff, like inspiring me to like think like, oh yeah, I need to get off my ass and do it. Anyway, so big Adam Green fan.
Love him.
And Broke Horror Fan had sponsored his podcast. They do a Save a Yorkie marathon every year.
Nice.
Or now it's called Yorkie-thon, but it's like to benefit this Save a Yorkie charity that saves Yorkies and other dogs, but predominantly Yorkies, because Adam Green is a Yorkie who's like the sponsor of the podcast, the mascot, I should say, of the podcast. Anyway, so we sponsored this charity event with a few other sites. So like I had like basically I had a vague connection to him. And around the same time, again, my friend James, who runs Witter, we've been kind of tossing the idea around about doing something in terms of merchandise. But again, just like when I started Broke Horror Fan and wanted to do something different, if I was going to merchandise, if I was going to kind of as James like kind of jokingly put it, exploit my reach. If I was going to do that, I want to do something unique. You know, I don't want to be like, there's so many other great companies that do shirts, so many great companies that do records, so many great companies that do screen printed posters, you know, toys, which is also insanely expensive. But basically, like all the stuff that I collect was like pretty hard to break into without, you know, because there's already people doing it so much better and that have been doing it so much longer. Except VHS tapes, like that got thrown out there. We both like, I was like, you know, there's not a lot, there's like a couple other companies doing it, but mostly it's just like independent filmmakers kind of like putting out their own movie, you know, self-distributing basically. So I was like, how cool would it be to do like a modern horror movie that's like, obviously we're not getting studio movie, like we're not getting The Conjuring, you know,
right.
Warner Brothers is not responding to our calls. But I was like, you know, I feel like maybe we can reach out and get like, you know, like a mid-level, you know, a horror movie that people have heard of, that horror fans will be excited about. So I reach out to Adam, again, having had like a vague connection with the podcast. At this point, Victor Crowley was like brand new. I think it was already out in theaters. He had done like a theatrical tour with it, but it wasn't out on DVD yet.
Okay.
And I was like, you know, can you put us in touch with whoever at Dark Sky, who's a distributor, like we could talk to about this? And he was like, yeah, you know, like that's a cool idea. Like I've signed bootleg of Hatchet VHS like at conventions before, so it'd be really cool to have like something official. He put us in touch with Dark Sky. We worked with them to license it out. That was our first tape, and they had the facilities to manufacture the tapes on their end, which we had initially planned on doing ourselves, but they had done like a limited run of House of the Devil when that had come out like a few years earlier. So like we have the means to manufacture it, for X amount more money. Instead of paying the licensing fee, we could also manufacture the tapes and roll it all in. So we're like, yeah, that sounds amazing, because that was going to be a shit ton of work for us. So we did that. We're super happy with that tape, but kind of ended up had to make more tapes than we wanted to make, and didn't have as much creative control as we would have liked. So like, wouldn't change that. So glad we got it. So glad that's our first tape, because again, Adam Green was influential to me. But after that, we were like, okay, well now we kind of understand the process of both licensing and the manufacturing end. Let's do it ourselves for so we have the creative and quality control going forward. So since then, we now handle, just between the two of us, everything. We crop the movies to 4:3. We usually whenever possible, get the filmmaker involved. They'll usually write like a letter, like almost like liner notes that we include. We get cast introductions that you can only watch on VHS.
That's awesome.
We do, I handle the design work. James now does the duplication. He handles the shipping. So between the two of us, we're just a two-person VHS factory, basically.
That's amazing.
And it's cool to see like how some of the distributors have been super like warm and welcoming. They're like, particularly the ones who like understand it's not going to get them rich. Trust me, it's not getting anybody rich. Like the profit margins on VHS in 2021 are almost non-existent. But they see it as like, oh, this is a really cool, like basically like free advertising for them, or not even free because we pay them for the license, but they're not like gouging us on the license, because it's like we're promoting their movie. We're only making a very limited number of copies. And also the filmmakers love it. I mean, we've encountered a couple who are like, I don't really get it, but good for you. But most of them, they're people who grew up watching horror movies on VHS, and it kind of
awesome.
It informed their filmmaking career. So they're like, to have one of my own movies on VHS, like an official tape on my shelf, it's pretty cool. So like to have the filmmaker support, that's gone a long way in terms of helping us get some of these movies too.
Oh, that's so cool. Now you said you have Mandy, right?
We have Mandy, yeah. That was definitely, so when we sat down, Mandy was like a new movie when we first started. But when we sat down, and like when we got Victor Crowley out, and we're like, all right, what else could we do? Like, what's like our white whales, we call them, like, our bucket list tapes, and like came up with like 5 or so different titles that like, this would be amazing, but like it'll never happen. And like Mandy was one of those 5, and like that, it happened like, I don't know, a year or 2 later maybe. So it's been great. Like, it blows my mind. We put out the like the official VHS release of 3 different Nicolas Cage movies now, and like good ones too. No offense, Nicolas Cage, but some of his some of his movies aren't quite as good, but we've done Mandy, Color Out of Space, and Willy's
Nice.
Wonderland.
I would love to see all those in VHS.
Yeah. Well, I know a guy.
Yeah.
Actually, all three of those are out of print right now. We do super limited runs, both to kind of keep the collectability, and also because it's super expensive and labor intensive to make a VHS. So for our own sanities, we also keep them limited. But Mandy and Willy's Wonderland will definitely be restocked sometime in the near future.
Good to know.
Our most recent release is Tragedy Girls.
Okay, nice.
Which was really cool to work on. And we can't announce anything yet, but we should have a moderately big title, like a title I think people are going to be excited about, coming up in September. And then a pretty cool collaboration with another, I don't know how to say it without giving anything away, another horror entity, I guess you could say.
Perfect.
Collaboration with in October.
Cool.
And we're kind of always working out new stuff in the pipeline. We have like our next like 6 releases or whatever.
Amazing.
Already kind of in the works. So it's cool. People seem to like it. We never thought we'd get as popular as we have. And again, like there's other people who do it who have done it longer than us. But I'm super excited about kind of what we've built out of nothing, out of just a dream,
It's incredible, man. I love that. It's inspiring, honestly. It's super cool. I mean, I know a whole community who would love that. So I mean,
well, that's the thing. We kind of like didn't realize quite how big the VHS community was. Like we obviously knew like there was a subset of horror fans who were like still rocking their Friday the 13th Part 7 tape or whatever, but like didn't quite realize the like underground community of people who like almost exclusively watch stuff on tape. There's people who are like bootleg new movies just to watch them on tape, which is like more power to them, as long as you're not selling them for profit,
right.
But yeah, so like we're very grateful that like for the most part that community has kind of welcomed us with open arms.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome, man. That's great. I feel like Ryan Turk could be about that, or any of those guys.
We've discussed with Ryan. So Ryan runs the I'm blanking on his name, the video art installation thing he does in LA.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but the name is
Slashback
yes.
Video.
Yeah.
It's like basically you're walking into a video store in like the 90s in this art installation.
I need to go. Oh my god.
I haven't been in person, but he does have our Terrifier tape and our Victor Crowley tape are on display at Slashback
No
Video.
way. That's amazing.
There's like they have like a new release wall which has like some of them are like made up movies, like they've like commissioned artists to like make a movie. Like I think one of them, like the one that jumps up off the top of my head, that somebody made like a Halloween 3 Part 2 kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like just like a fake cover art.
Yeah.
So anyway, on that new release wall, our Victor Crowley and Terrifier tapes are there.
That's amazing. That's super cool. How did you figure that out, or did he like? Do you get in talks with them?
Yeah.
You did. Okay.
We had a mutual friend who put us in touch.
Gotcha.
And he was like, if you want to send a tape, we'll gladly put it on display. And that was like right when Victor Crowley came out. I think it was the first Slashback at that point. And then by the time the second one rolled around, we had Terrifier, and we knew from listening to his podcast at the time, Shockwaves, he was like, he super into Terrifier, so we're like, all right, we got to send him one to put
that's
out
amazing. Shockwaves is so good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's the best. Have you listened to horror movie podcast by any chance? I don't know if you.
I haven't. That's the most generic name I've ever heard.
It's called Horror Movie Podcast. It's pretty straightforward.
But again, as the guy who said, like, I like something that does what it says on the box. So like,
there you go. Oh, it's great. There's these 3 guys, and they're they go super in depth. Hours long podcasts about movies and like horror movies specifically. But like for example, they did through the month of October, they did like a franchise review of Halloween, and they did like the first one would be like the first and second, and it would be like a 4-hour episode, and then they would basically do that, and it's so cool. I've actually edited a couple of their episodes, but definitely check it out if you like podcasts and horror movies. Definitely check it out. There's a lot on there, so but it's cool. Well, sweet. I mean, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I feel like we could talk for hours about this.
Listen, man, I got time if there's anything else you want to talk about specifically, but yeah, whatever.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there's so many.
My 2 most anticipated of the year, well, 3, I should say, my 3 most anticipated of the year, but 2 are still forthcoming. One was Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
One was Candyman, which again,
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have seen, and lived up to my expectations. And the third one is Halloween Kills.
Halloween Kills. Yeah, that and Candyman are, I think, my top two of this year for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Also, I will say, which I didn't mention, but we did do a VHS. My favorite movie of the year so far, bar none, is Psycho Goreman.
Oh
I
yeah.
have not been more entertained watching a movie in
Amazing.
2021, possibly even the last like several years. But we got to do the VHS of that, and that was a really cool thing. Just because like
So cool.
we love every movie we put out, but like, you know, certain movies you connect with more than others.
Yeah.
So like to be able to do like, here's a movie I genuinely love, makes like perfect sense for VHS because it was inspired by, you know, those kind of those movies we grew up watching on, you know, grainy little TVs.
Yeah.
And like the filmmaker really like got it. So that was a really cool one to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, going back to that, like, I just think of Friday 13th like on VHS as like the first one that just like to me is like the epitome of like a classic horror film on VHS. Like it's so grainy. It's amazing.
And again, like, I mean, as good as Tom Savini's special effects are, I mean,
yeah,
easily one of the best of all time. But like when you see some of that stuff in Blu-ray or even 4K now, like sometimes you can see the seams on, you know, some of the makeup, which is like perfectly understandable. Like literally looks better now than it did in theaters in 1980.
Right.
But you know, VHS is a little more forgiving. It also kind of feels almost like, I don't know, forbidden kind of thing, because like I mean, it's obviously a very outdated thing, but it also kind of brings, particularly if you grew up watching them on tape, but like I feel like it brings you kind of back to that, you know, your inner child kind of indulging them in this like secret thing that not a lot of people are doing.
Right.
So I feel like that's kind of part of the appeal beyond just the broader nostalgia.
Totally. Now I feel like, I mean, obviously older films, I mean, how does that work with like VHS? You know, I mean, obviously older films. Like I think one of my favorite movies is The Wicker Man. Like I love folk horror, big folk horror person. I don't even know, like, is there like right issues for that, or can you kind of like, I mean, it's probably difficult to kind of figure all that stuff out. You know, if you wanted to make a VHS of those types of movies.
Our like mission statement was to put out like modern movies that kind of make sense to the VHS era. That said, we have had none that have come to fruition, but we have had talks with a few people involved with movies like we love from the 80s, about potentially doing like a new, very limited, you know, kind of special edition type thing, which I'm not at all opposed to. But it really comes down to the rights owners. Again, I mean, like Wicker Man, I think that's probably at like Lionsgate now, I want to say.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
Because I'm pretty sure it's because Lionsgate bought Anchor Bay, and Anchor Bay, I think, put out the last DVD. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else on it. But at any event, like, again, Lionsgate's like a studio that's not gonna answer our calls as much as I'd love to. But there are particularly now stuff from the 80s that like the rights are reverting back to the filmmakers or producers. And again, we've in very early talks about potentially doing some. We did do one inadvertently, kind of. We did Night of Living Dead, and it's
awesome.
It actually is officially licensed from the Image Entertainment, who's like the original producers. Obviously, if you know anything about the history of Night of Living Dead, it was public domain, so like anyone could release it anywhere. And the good quality VHSs are almost non-existent. But we put out this thing called Gory Books, which is like almost like a play on little golden books. So it's like children's book style adaptations of classic horror properties.
Sweet.
And our first one was Night of the Living Dead. It's our only one to date, but there's more of that in the works. But our first one was Night of the Living Dead, which we did because it's public domain, thinking like we can kind of test the waters, see if people are into this idea, if they're into this concept, with a beloved property that we don't have to chase the license down for. While it is in public domain and we technically could have gotten away with it, the people who do own it reach out to us and we're like, hey, you know, here's the deal. Like, you know, we got screwed over on this copyright. So like we can't, you know, you can do this technically, but like there are certain elements we own. And we're like, dude, like, no, we would be, you know, like literally honored to work with anybody involved in Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
So it turned into, the book is technically like an officially licensed Night of the Living Dead product. And as a tie-in to the book was, you know, we sold it to like you can find it like certain comic shops and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah.
But exclusive to our web store, to the Witter Entertainment shop, we paired it with, it has 3 different covers from 3 different artists. So we did, for each cover of the book, we did like a matching cover of the tape.
Sweet.
So we did like little bundles with that, which the Night of the Living Dead people were super into. And currently, again, it probably be over by the time this airs, because I think the campaign ends on Friday.
Okay.
But the book will be available. But there's a book called Night of the Living Tapes coming out, which tracks the home video history of Night of the Living Dead and kind of goes into way more detail about all these things that I'm talking about. And it literally traces like every VHS tape that's ever been made of Night of the Living Dead, which is like hundreds.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. But right now they're doing a Kickstarter
Okay.
to kind of help fund the book. They've already reached their goal. They far exceeded their goal. But one of the perks, because we became friendly with these people, is a new Night of the Living Dead tape made from like the 4K restoration, which is a weird backwards thing, but like,
Yeah.
we're dumbing down this beautiful restoration from 4K down to whatever 480p if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But again, we're producing this official Night of the Living Dead tape that's has really
so
cool artwork that the guys at Fright Rags made.
Oh, so cool.
They also have a shirt as part of the campaign.
Amazing.
So again, it's like this weird, but I mean amazing, kind of shows you what a small world and like tight-knit community horror is.
Yeah.
Because like, these people were able to find us. I have a pre-existing friendship with the Fright Rags guys. I handle their publicity.
Oh, cool.
So like it's this weird like kind of small circle of people that just like supporting one another. And again, just to have like my name on something that's like an official Night of the Living Dead thing is like mind-blowing to me.
So cool. Yeah, I mean, you and Cesar Romero, I mean, not Cesar Romero, George Romero. I was like, I had the joke in my mind. I was like, what? You and George Romero kind of share some now.
I mean, yeah.
That's amazing. You can literally say that legally.
That's legally. I'm gonna put that on my card.
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool though.
It really is. And some of the other, again, not quite, I mean, very few films do have the cachet of Night of the Living Dead, but like some of the other properties, like the filmmakers from other 80s type movies that we're talking to, not quite the legacy of Night, but like definitely like movies that horror fans will be super excited about if we can do a new VHS. And again, I mean, it'll look better than any old VHS because we're going to use a much better transfer. So
that's awesome. That's super cool actually to know, because I feel like people don't understand, like they don't know that. I mean, I guess you'll put that in the notes.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Night of the Living Dead's like a particularly special case because you could bootleg it from anything. So you could like, so those are super terrible quality, but like, even if they made it from an amazing film transfer in 1982 or whatever, that tape is going to have degraded over time and stuff, and gotten dusty and stuff. So I'm very proud to say ours would be the best presentation on, if you were going to watch it on VHS.
That's great. That's awesome. Now was Mandy through SpectreVision, right? Or
well, SpectreVision produced it and they were involved. In fact, that's one of the few releases we have where the director wasn't directly involved. He did approve it. He watched the 4:3 crop, or at least checked it and like approved it. Cool. But normally we have like almost a one-on-one relationship with the director, who's like, here's what we're going to do for the art. Here's the crop. Here's our extras. He was a little more hands-off, which is like, fine, dude, you're a genius. If it takes you 8 years to make your next movie, like, do it. So it was licensed through RLJ Films, they're kind of, as a matter of fact, I mentioned Anchor Bay, which like anyone who grew up watching horror DVDs, they did like all, Halloween, Evil Dead, Wicker Man, basically like a lot of the classics. They did like the first really good special editions of. In like the early 2000s. Anyways, the guy who was like the head of Anchor Bay during those years now, or at least did, he left Anchor Bay, started Image Entertainment, which has since become RLJ.
Gotcha.
And then now AMC owns RLJ, but as far as I know, a guy with good taste still runs it because they get a lot of good movies.
That's all that matters.
So we've licensed a lot of really good movies from them.
Amazing.
And continue to do so. but they were the licensor, but Spectrovision had final approval over everything. So cool. we did have to run like artwork and stuff by them, which is crazy that like again, one of my VHS tapes might be in Frodo's house. So.
I was gonna say, I was like, did you get to speak to Elijah Wood?
Well, so that's the thing. Like, they definitely, I mean, and I don't blame them, but like RLJ was like our go-between on that one. They didn't like put us directly in touch with them.
Okay.
But I will say, the thing about Spectrovision, and like, there's nothing negative about it. It's cool. That's the thing. But they're really big on like the fake aging on the VHS tape. Like, they want it to look like a relic from the 80s.
Oh, interesting.
Which, again, when we started, that was kind of like what we wanted to avoid. Not avoid isn't the right word, but like, we're like, it's already an old thing, an old medium. But it's a new movie. We're not like fooling people by saying it's from the 80s. So like, we kind of made a conscious decision early on to like not add fake like scratches and folds and like stickers and stuff on our tapes. But when we started working with Spectrovision, they were like, no, we love that, please do that. So we did. So our first movie we worked with them on was Color Out of Space, and we did some of the fake aging on that. But then they were like, no, we really love that. So we like went all out on Mandy. So Mandy does look like a relic from the 80s, and like, I'm very, very proud of how that came out, very happy with that came out, and happy that I made Elijah Wood happy.
I mean, that's huge because he loves horror, which is something that I like. I always tell people like, he's one of my favorite people just because how obsessed with horror he is, and like, I love it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, that dude could definitely never work a day in his life again, and probably be pretty okay. But like, he spends like his time like being passionate. Like, again, not just like, I mean, the roles he chooses are also super interesting. I think every movie he's made in the last like 10 years, at least independent movie he's made in the last 10 years, he's done some studio stuff on, which I'm sure is more for paycheck than art. But for sure. But like, every indie movie he's done is like really interesting, if not even great. But I think most of them are great. Like his Maniac remake, like,
he was so good.
Yeah, so good.
Amazing.
I just think like the choices he made is so interesting. And then beyond the acting choices, he's actually like, no, that's not enough. I need to produce stuff that I believe in, kind of put my money where my mouth is. And like, that's how we got Mandy and Color Out of Space and a bunch of other Daniel Isn't Real. And, they're doing a lot of really cool, really interesting stuff. And I'm, again, just, it's like, I don't know, flabbergasted. When I'm saying it out loud, it's like, oh shit,
it's
like,
crazy.
It's crazy that I work with this dude.
I know, it's amazing.
I mean, work with is a stretch, but legally, like, I can say I'm associated with Romero. I'm legally associated with Elijah Wood.
Amazing. Now, how about have you had any talks with like, I mean, they're very recent, like Monkey Paw or A24 at all?
We have not. I will. So I mean, Monkey Paw, all their stuff is distributed by Universal. Or maybe not all, but at least
that's probably tough then.
Like, I know that call's not going anywhere. It's something I would definitely try for eventually. Like, we always say never say never.
Of course.
Who would have thought we had Mandy? A24 is one we discuss often on that white whale list that I mentioned. Like, The Witch was up there.
Sure.
That's like one of my favorite movies of the last decade. Favorite movies to ever, really. Like, I think it's again one of the most well-made horror movies ever. I would love to do that on tape.
That'd be awesome.
We haven't quite made that, haven't sent that email yet. We don't really have a direct contact or like a lead there, which makes it, the cold call or the cold email is hard to get a response. We've certainly found that if you have like a filmmaker who's really excited, well, not only can they put you in direct touch with the right person as opposed to just some, contact form, but we can also say like, the filmmaker is not only on board, but like super excited about it. They're going to help us with it. That, I think that goes a long way. So we don't have anyone for A24. If anyone from A24 is watching this, please email.
Yeah, for sure.
But they released one of their movies. It wasn't a horror movie. I can't remember what it was, on VHS as like a, just almost like a gag, I guess you could say. Because they do, I mean, their merchandising is super limited and super sought after, I guess you'd say. Like, I think the tape sold out in like 5 minutes and they did like 100 copies or something like that. And they afterwards they tweeted something to the extent of like, we're never doing a VHS tape again, it's too much work. So like, we definitely want to send an email someday and be like, hey, listen, I know you want to get out of the VHS game, but like, look, we'll do all the heavy lifting. You just have to allow us, license us your movies for an amount that won't put us out of business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can like safely assure that Robert Eggers and Ari Aster would be so down for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. I particularly Ari Aster. I mean, I think Eggers. I actually had the distinct pleasure of interviewing both of them.
Oh,
Both
really?
super nice guys. Robert strikes me as a guy who's very, I don't know what the word would be, into his art, precious.
Yes,
That's the word I was looking for. Precious.
I get that vibe. I totally get that vibe.
So, and rightfully so. As a filmmaker myself, sometimes I think about these things like, I mean, filmmaker again in quotes, but like as a guy who makes shorts, sometimes like I kind of think the broader picture, like, would I let just some guy like have the power to choose what goes in the frame? Because like, particularly if you're shooting like super widescreen, you're cropping out a lot to get to 4:3. And I again, this is like a fantasy conversation in my head, but like I question whether Robert Eggers would be like, well, I don't know if I want my movie watched in such a low
That's true.
and more power to him. He wouldn't be the first filmmaker to respectfully decline.
Right.
But I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong. Ari Aster, again, I mean, only spent 5 minutes with him, but like he seems super into kind of like the horror community.
Yeah.
So, he's a little more active, in terms of, I don't know, public awareness, for lack of a better term. You kind of, I feel like you hear from him more publicly.
Right.
And again, all fantasy in my head, I feel like he might be more into the idea, but hey, I mean, anybody involved, please. Because Hereditary would definitely be another one, and Midsommar for that matter. Would definitely be like super high up on our
my favorites. It was funny. I interviewed recently. Have you seen Homewrecker on Shudder?
No. I've watched most of the Shudder originals, but I haven't seen that one. Okay,
it's Precious Chung. She's in it. She did like it's like an indie horror film, but she's like the producer, writer, actor in it. I interviewed her recently, and she said she met Ari Aster, and she was like, yeah, he was just like a prodigy. Like she knew someone who went to film camp with him, and they were like, yeah, he was just like the best in class. And I was like, you can tell he's just like,
not at all surprised. Like when your first movie is Hereditary, like,
dude,
it's insane. I mean, and again, same with Eggers. Like your first movie is The Witch, like something so meticulous and like
amazing,
incredibly crafted. It's
we're in a good time for horror right now.
We really are. And I feel like it kind of comes and goes in cycles, but I feel like this is like the longest period of like good horror, and on both sides. Because I mean, obviously every year you're going to get some studio stuff that just doesn't work. But I feel like even on the studio level, like we're getting some interesting stuff. Granted, it's still a lot of reboots, remakes, sequels kind of stuff. But even them, like, if I'd rather, a good Halloween legacy sequel like the 2018 one than like another reboot or whatever.
100%.
But yeah, again, like we're talking like the James Wans of the world kind of, coming up and doing an interesting thing. Obviously, Eggers and Aster. I mean, I feel like it's
Jordan Peele.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I mean, and like, I mean, I'm so glad his new film Malignant is coming out, and I'm so glad he's going back to that, because I was like, don't do more superhero movies.
No, me too. And that's again just kind of shows the strength of the horror community and like the passion of these filmmakers, because like, again, they could easily just keep making blockbuster after blockbuster. Same with David F. Sandberg. Like, he's doing Shazam 2 right now, but then he said like, after this, I want to do another small horror movie.
Hope so.
Kind of go back to the basics.
And it's funny because like just by saying that, like the studios they're like, wow, these guys are actually, they're bringing in horror directors for these superhero movies, because they're like, oh wow, these guys are actually good filmmakers. And I know Marvel's tried to recruit Jordan Peele, and it's like it's this whole thing. And horror, man, people just need to give it more respect.
I got it. Yeah, I mean, I think not to get into this debate because it's so far off topic, but I'm more Marvel movie guy than DC movie guy.
Yeah,
but DC's definitely, I mean, they're bringing in these horror directors like James Wan and David F. Sandberg. And that's exciting to me, to kind of give these people, the budgets they deserve, the time they deserve, the resources they deserve, and kind of letting them do whatever they can.
Yep.
But again, I want to see them kind of return to their roots as well.
For sure. I know. I was like, I just want James Wan to direct another Conjuring film, like just at least one more.
Especially after seeing that third one, I feel like it really there's something missing there. It wasn't bad by any means. Like I liked it. If that was the Conjuring 1, I'd be like, that was a good movie. But like having the the weight, the baggage, I guess maybe you'd call it, of
Mhm.
like following up these two like really, really good horror movies. It was just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
a tough shoes to fill.
Impossible. Yeah, it's funny because like yeah, I'm not a huge DC movie either. And then I like besides the Dark Knight trilogy, like I think Shazam was actually my favorite DC universe, whatever you want to call it, film. And I, just because like it's got that David Sandberg's James Wan vibe. Like you watch those movies, it's them, which I love. I think that's
Yeah,
so
no,
awesome.
I agree. And that's I would say, I think the Suicide Squad has replaced it. But again, James Gunn's another horror guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yes, prior to that, Shazam was my favorite as well.
For sure. But cool. I mean, I probably have a million more things to talk about, but
all right, we'll come back another time.
Yeah, let's do this again. That'd be great.
Yeah. Let's make something too. Let's
that'd be
write
awesome,
something.
man.
Let's do something, man.
I would love to do that. Yeah. Well, let's stay in touch and figure something out. And maybe we can have you on like one of our podcast reviews. We can review a movie or something, a horror movie.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, sweet. Well, I appreciate the time, man. That was great. Love chatting with other people, especially horror fans. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, good luck with everything, and I hope everything goes well. And I can't wait to see, what kind of VHS you guys got coming out, and what other, anything. So
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, cool. We'll be in touch.
Yeah,
we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Yeah, as well. Bye.
Bye.